Good afternoon to you. 5:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Perhaps you've been on social media this week, or perhaps you were listening to this fine radio program, and you heard President Trump pay a visit to a grocery store in Pennsylvania and help some of the customers in line pay for their grocery bills. Take a listen to this.
Take the rest of it. Here, it's going to go down a little bit. It just went down $100. We'll do that for you from the White House, all right?
Thank you.
All right, bye. Nice seeing you, everybody. Beautiful. They're your kids?
Yeah, they are.
Perfecto. Perfecto.
They your kids? Perfecto, he says after handing out a couple fresh Benjamins to people trying to pay for groceries in this economy. That store is called Sprankles Neighborhood Market. It's in Katanning, Pennsylvania, and this is audio of the proprietor of that store, the owner, Ryan Sprankles, giving President Trump a tour. Take a listen to this.
Quite a store, isn't it?
Yeah, we got it. It's funny. It's 10,000 square foot. We're up against 150,000 square foot
But you're doing
monsters,
okay.
but we got to be efficient with what we got. That's what we say. We got to
But
be
you have
efficient.
good
with what
product,
we
I can see it.
got. We got a good product, and we got honestly the best crew in the world. We got
So
the
how
best
do you
crew.
do against the big stores? How do you do?
You know, I'm very proud because every year we've been up, except for the last 3 years because of this inflation.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you said.
Inflation's
The
killing.
prices are up, but our sales are down. So we've had to get super creative in how we use our space to try
So
to.
prices go up and yet your sales are down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been brutal just to try to. Thankfully, I have a great crew, great staff, my family. We work
How long
together.
has this been open?
We've been in business 25 years.
Wow.
They've been in business 25 years, Sprankles Neighborhood Market. The owner, Ryan Sprankles, joins us on the phone right now. Ryan, good to have you with us, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Let me just start from the top. And what is it like having the President of the United States stop by your business?
I mean, unbelievable, just unbelievable. The amount of excitement, the amount of adrenaline, just the anticipation of waiting for him to arrive. You know, the crowds were insane. I mean, I haven't seen crowds like that in Katanning, Pennsylvania, for parades, let alone the president coming in. The crazy thing was that we kept it a secret, or we tried to, but once the word went out, it was literally a sea of people. So, I mean, I knew he was coming, but I heard it from the crowd before I saw it. Then the vehicles rolled up, and the Secret Service gets out, and there's some media that came in, and next thing you know, I'm standing in the entrance of my store, and President Donald Trump comes walking towards me. It was a lot to take in. It was an experience I'll never forget.
That's funny. Did you get any sleep the night before? What time did you wake up?
No, I'll be honest with you. I was stirring all night. Once Sunday it was confirmed that it was, probably going to happen as long as everything stayed on schedule.
Yeah.
And so it was just, just the anticipation of waiting for it. I mean, I couldn't sleep.
That's pretty cool. Did the crowd buy stuff at your store? All those people that gathered to see the president, did they become customers?
Well, I'll tell you this much: the next day, our foot traffic, you don't know how it's going to be when you get into hosting political figures.
Sure.
Normally, you stay away from that, but the way I look at it, if no matter what side of the aisle, if somebody of that status is willing to pay a visit and see what's happening in our town, see what's happening in our business, we welcome them with open arms. So, but I was pleasantly surprised because I showed up the next day and I couldn't even get into the parking lot. So it was great, the amount of support following the event. People just coming and wanting to support us.
Yeah.
They're very thankful. Even Democrats, longtime Democrats that I know very well, they definitely, they texted, they came to the store, they messaged me on Facebook and just let me know, hey, we might not agree with President Trump's views, but we appreciate, you bringing somebody like that to our town and letting somebody know, that we're here and what our issues are. So they're very thankful for that. I mean, the town is a town of 4,500 people, so it's very small town.
I love that. I love that. Reasonable Democrats, not MSNBC contributors, just normal people, and so they're happy with you. You're right about the peril of politics, though, for a business like yours. I did see some reporting that the lefties from across the country have been what we call this brigading. They jump into your reviews online to try and make it appear like your business is not great. So that must be annoying to have to deal with that.
Well, I just got off the phone with my brother, Doug, and he's been monitoring. I've been trying to catch up on some of my work in the stores today. Obviously I got a little behind with what happened, but he's been monitoring our social media and our emails through the store today. And actually, it's kind of, to your point, that's exactly what happened. There was a couple instances of people that got on and through, basically false statements and just came up on phony accounts just for backing our business. And he kind of challenged them at first, and then once he realized what it was, then he had them reported. But it's unbelievable. Yeah. I'd never heard of that before. And he said that thankfully he caught it, because these people were just terrorizing us with no repercussions, or it's horrible. If I had to make a living doing that, I would not want to make a living doing that. I don't care what somebody was paying me. I don't care how much attention I was getting.
No,
that's just a terrible way to live.
It's soulless. It's totally soulless to do something like that to a small business. Ryan Sprankles, has it been more than criticism? Have they done? They haven't done anything else more awful than that, have they?
No. You know what? They haven't. It's all just been, verbal, online, basically.
Good.
Kind of gutless, which I'm glad.
Yeah.
We have a small town, and we have a very tight knit community. I mean, if you and I were in the front of my store, I'd probably be able to recite by name 6 out of 9 or 10 people that came through the door, or have some kind of relationship with them. I mean, it's a very close-knit community. We definitely look out for one another. So if any of those people were courageous enough to get radical, they would instantly be removed from the premises.
Good for you.
There wouldn't even be.
Yeah. That's smart. So let me ask you about the grocery store business, because I feel like it's been maligned a lot lately by Kamala Harris specifically. She says that grocery stores are robbing people blind, that they're just making up the prices. They decided to wait until 3 years into the Biden administration. As soon as Biden becomes president, all the grocery stores, they all got together and they said, we're going to hurt people. Here's Kamala recently declaring that she's going to tackle what she accidentally referred to as price gouging.
And I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gouging on food. My plan will include new penalties for opportunistic companies that exploit crises and break the rules.
Okay, so she says you're driving up the grocery store, grocery prices artificially. What's really happening, Ryan?
Well, I mean, she obviously hasn't run a grocery store or managed a grocery store in her life, because there's so much competition. The grocery industry, I mean, for people that know about the grocery industry, it is razor thin margins. I mean, we're working on, if we do a great job throughout the year, we're looking at 1.5% profit. I mean, it's a thin margin, and there's so much competition. But the dollar stores, the Walmarts of the world, the Aldis of the world, the local chains, the small stores like ours, the super centers. There's so many people. There's so many different stores that are trying to get the same dollar from the same people, especially in small towns, but in every town, every city. There's so much competition that nobody could ever get away with doing that. You would put yourself out of business. The idea is to create as much value to the customer as possible and create that loyalty so that they shop for all their groceries at your store, so that you can continue to grow or at least maintain and get better. So for somebody to say, I mean, even they can say whatever they want to say, but the reality is you can't gouge, because they're just going to go to the next door.
Yeah.
Everybody in the industry keeps the prices as low as possible because you can't afford not to. So the industry corrects itself. that's just wild to hear that.
So,
Wild.
so
Another
Ryan,
thing, yeah. I mean, that I heard about her. I mean, I'm sure you've went over her many times, but I just recently heard about her giving offering to give $50,000 out to startups. Well, that's ridiculous too. I hope everybody realizes that just to pay for an entrance of a building to your business is probably more than $50,000. So she's literally just throwing away our tax money so that people can, it's not viable. It's not. You can't live on that. She'd be much better off doing what President Trump plans to do, lowering the corporate tax rate, which people think of corporate tax rate lowering as big corporations, but in reality, we're corporations. All of my fellow independents are corporations. We're the ones that'll benefit from that and be able to reinvest with that. We don't need $50,000. We need lower taxes.
Yeah, it's remarkable. In the time that she and Joe Biden have been in office, these last 3.5 years, is there any category of grocery that you're the most surprised by? That are like, wow, the prices on this have really gone up. It's unbelievable.
I mean, definitely eggs. Eggs are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's a staple item in most homes. It's one of our highest volume items. It's an item that normally we use as a loss leader to get people to come to the store. We usually price it below our cost to get people to come to the store, but they're up 54% since they took office. So, I mean, what do you do? What do you do with that? Like, how do you do that? So we've had to just lower our margins to basically nothing and use it as a loss leader every day just to stay competitive. But it used to be an item that we could price reasonably, make decent profit on, and then use one or two varieties or sizes to draw people into the store. But now we just have them, and we're not making anything off of them. It's insane.
Yeah, and you don't sell all the eggs, do you? I mean, people, I don't know. When I shop for eggs, I do what my parents taught me. You pop open the box, you look, see, make sure they're whole, they're not cracked. So you must have some loss too, just like eggs that never actually get sold.
Exactly, and the way the market used to be, you could have eggs out there at a very good price and build enough margin in to offset your loss.
Yeah.
But now you can't even offset your loss. I mean, anything that's a loss is now truly a loss because you're trying to hold the pricing so low, but the cost is so high, and it just stays there. It's kind of crazy.
Have you seen
Never seen anything like that.
Have you seen customers have to downgrade the types of things that they buy from your store because they can't afford the things that they used to consume?
Absolutely. That's been another challenge. I just got an email this morning from our main supplier, Merchants Distributors, and they sent out a report. It was a news. It was a supermarket news article, and it went over. And we're seeing this, but it was nice to see that we're not alone in this. The people are definitely downsizing. They're definitely cutting back, and they're cutting back on the areas that we rely on for draws, meat and dairy and some of the extra items, some of the higher end items where you're making some decent margin. Those are the items that they're cutting out, and those are the items that we as independents throughout the country rely on to separate ourselves from the big guys. So now our competitive advantage is being cut, and it's killing the independent grocers and the independent businesses. It's just killing them.
So what it sounds like is if the Biden-Harris agenda were to continue, that could very much, as you put it, kill businesses like yours.
Oh, if the current trends were to continue, I'm not going to say kill because, we've been around 25 years and some of our friends have too. Now, we've seen a lot of friends go out of business, unfortunately, two or three in the last couple of years. But you just have to. I always say in the independent grocery business, I'm sure it's true of any business. It's like playing a football game. You have to play to the officiating. So if the officials are calling it looser, okay, then you can be more aggressive. You can invest. You can invest in your people. You can invest in new equipment. You can invest in new ideas. But if they're calling it really tight, then you just have to tighten up. And what does that result in? It results in us using less hours, which means less jobs.
Yeah.
It's less use of suppliers, less purchasing on our end, less purchasing of equipment, less purchasing of maintenance. So it affects all the maintenance jobs in our area. It affects all the equipment sales in our area, and it's just it's a trickle down effect, and it's obviously very bad for small towns like ours.
Ryan Sprankles, I am so grateful for our conversation today, and I hope a lot more people keep coming back to your store. Thank you very much, Ryan. Nice to talk to you today.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you very much.
Of course. God bless. That's Ryan Sprankles, the owner of Sprankles Neighborhood Market out there in Katanning, Pennsylvania. Just received a visit from President Trump. Got all sorts of attention nationwide, including from lefties who've been trying to attack his business now online, saying it's awful. It turns out it sounds pretty great, actually. Nice guy, Ryan. On line 2, Val is calling in from Maryland. Hello, Val.
Hi, Vince. Poor Mr. Sprankles. I mean, here he is. He's a small business owner trying to provide for his family and employ people in the community. And then you have these, lefty nut jobs giving him bad reviews for not have ever even stepped a foot in his store. And I hope there's a listener out there that will take a case and through forensics find out who they are and sue the pants off of them for giving him bad reviews like that.
It really goes to show you what the left thinks of workers, doesn't it? Of small businesses, of people who are not the filthy rich, not the millionaires and the billionaires, but the guy who's working on 1% margins and losing money every time he sells eggs, now being attacked by the left, as is typical. Stay with us. Hey, good afternoon to you. 536 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We've been waiting with very low expectations for the product of an MSNBC conversation between Stephanie Ruhle and Kamala Harris. Drool because she's going to drool all over her tonight. They already did the interview because nothing in Kamala's life can be live or unscripted. They did a pre-recorded interview for MSNBC. And remember, I mentioned that Stephanie Ruhle was on Bill Maher's show with a guy called, I think it was Brett Stevens from the New York Times on Friday. And the two of them were mixing it up. And Stephanie Ruhle was arguing, I don't know, she was insisting that Kamala owes us nothing. No explanations, and does not need to be challenged, and at least she's not Trump. And no matter what, 100%, whatever's in Kamala's head or not in Kamala's head, she's going to be better than Trump.
Set of questions. It's not too much to ask Kamala, say, are you for a Palestinian state if Hamas is going to run that state?
Okay.
Yes or no?
And let's say you don't like her answer. Are you going to vote for Donald Trump?
No, I'm not.
Kamala
I just said I'm not going to vote for her.
Harris is not running for perfect. She's running against Trump. We have two choices. And so there are some things you might not know her answer to. And in 2024, unlike 2016 for a lot of the American people, we know exactly what Trump will do.
Yeah, that's why people are going to vote for him. Big numbers out there. But isn't that amazing? We've got to vote for her to find out what's in her. That's the Stephanie Ruhle rule. That's her plan right now. Vote for Kamala. We'll find out later what that means. What? Is this the network that constantly crows about democracy and how important it is and taking care of the people and it's the people's voice and on and on and on? Now it's shut up, serfs. Just make her president and then you'll find out what your country's going to look like? Well, I'm here to tell you a couple things. One, we already know what it looks like with her in charge. She's the vice president right now. She is not maneuvering for a new gig entirely. She's maneuvering for a promotion. She wants a promotion, and she deserves to be fired. That's really the choice. And I've been thinking about the firing thing. Much of Trump's public career was The Apprentice, right? A lot of people became aware of him. He really should lean into this Kamala, you're fired business. And just because it's a short phrase, let's fire Kamala. It's a short phrase, and it conveys what's true, which is she's in the White House right now. And they're trying desperately to keep you from that realization. Don't let them know that she works there right now. Don't tie her to Biden. That's what the media has been trying. It's absurd. MSNBC has just released the first excerpt. It comes to us from Curtis Houck over at Newsbusters of Stephanie Ruhle's chit-chat with Kamala Harris today. Here's what it sounds like so far.
Tariffs aren't unique to President Trump. President Biden has tariffs in place. He's actually looking to potentially implement more. Where do you come out on? Is there a good tariff, a bad tariff?
Well, part of it is you don't just throw around the idea of just tariffs across the board, and that's part of the problem with Donald Trump. Frankly, I'm going to, and I say this in all sincerity, he's just not very serious about how he thinks about some of these issues.
All right, so first of all, the way President Trump has wielded tariffs has been to our benefit. Remember when he was confronting Mexico, he specifically threatened them with a trade war. He said, look, if you don't get control of the border crisis, I'm going to impose tariffs on you. How about that? How about that? So forget the carrot. Here comes the stick. And Mexico said, what? We'll get control of it. We'll get control of our southern border. We'll do that. So President Trump has tactically and well used tariffs as a means to achieve positive outcomes for the United States. That's just true. So she's already wrong there. But then she says, you heard what Kamala just said. She said he's not very serious about how he thinks about some of these issues. Okay, how about you be serious then? Show us your policy chops. Show us what you know about this subject right now. Give us something that is not just pablum, that's not just vapid nonsense, just words circling around each other and leading us nowhere. Give us some specifics. What does that sound like?
And one must be serious and have a plan, and a real plan that's not just about some talking point ending in an exclamation at a political rally, but actually putting the thought into what will be the return on the investment, what will be the economic impact on everyday people.
That's the answer. That's the whole answer. That's the excerpt that's been released so far. So she didn't actually give you anything. It was just, again, vapid nonsense out of the mouth of Kamala Harris, who's running the single most vapid presidential campaign that our country has ever seen. It's just emptiness. It's just emptiness. It's vote for Pedro, right? Vote for Pedro, Napoleon Dynamite. Vote for me and all of your wildest dreams will come true. It's just nonsense. It doesn't tell you anything. Let's see here. So she's got some work to do. The campaign realizes that whatever they're doing is not working, so they're deciding to put her out in front of a variety. If some people like Stephanie Ruhle, they're like, well, let's sit her down with her because Stephanie Ruhle said she wasn't going to be that tough with her. She promised that. And so there you go, the first excerpt. That's usually in the news business, you lead with your best stuff. You want to entice viewers to watch it, right? That's the whole point. So just to be clear, that was the very first clip that MSNBC released today. Can you imagine how awful the rest of this is? That's the best clip. That's the single best one. That's the enticement. That's the tease. Oh, I can't wait for that. It's going to be great. Barf. But her campaign does realize that they've got some problems. No question. And so she's going to be paying a visit to the border this week to call attention to that chaos, which Frank Luntz is warning over. Even on CNN, Frank Luntz is saying this could be a bad idea for her.
CNN has learned that Harris is planning to visit the southern border when she goes to Arizona on Friday. CNN polling, of course, shows Trump leading Harris on the issue of immigration by 14%. Is a visit to the border at this stage in the race something that she can capitalize on, or is that going to be really tough?
I actually would have advised against it. That her time to have gone to the border was last year or the year before that, and now it only highlights the fact that she hasn't really focused on this issue, even though she had some. We can't determine what the actual responsibility was that she had in the administration because it's been muddied. But this is an area that Donald Trump can say, just look at the numbers. Look at the immigration statistics. Look at the illegal immigration that took place under his administration and under the Biden-Harris administration.
Yeah, so this is going to be a problem. This is going to highlight a big problem for her. So this is a stupid idea, says Frank Luntz. Right. And I mentioned earlier, the reason she's doing this is because she's weak with Hispanics. That's the truth. She's especially in Arizona, where it looks like she's getting her clock cleaned right now. And they're looking to salvage that. And guess what Hispanic Americans in Arizona care about? A sound economy and a secure border. And she thinks if she goes there and performatively visits it, see, I'm tough. I'm going to secure it. You opened it, sweetheart. It's your problem. You created this. Meanwhile, later this year, coming up in October, you're going to see Kamala Harris sit down for not a debate, but instead a sit down with Univision but she'll only do it after Trump does it. This is an interesting story. So Univision has an anchor by the name of Enrique Acevedo, who is going to be having a sit-down with both President Trump and Vice President Harris in Miami, Florida, first for President Trump, and then in Las Vegas, Nevada, second. October 8th is Trump. October 10th is Harris. Both events will broadcast at 10 o'clock at night with Spanish translation. And there's a couple things going on here. One is, like, clearly the Harris campaign is waiting for Trump to go first because they want to see how that goes. They want to watch that first because they need the benefit of all the information they can get. Also, this guy, Enrique Acevedo, I was curious. I was like, well, how does he treat Trump in his normal coverage? You know, this is what you wonder about this. And I stumbled across an interview that he did 10 months ago with President Trump. And this was a big deal in lefty circles at the time because the left apparently was furious about the way Univision conducted this interview, which goes to show you what it meant, what it was. They asked President Trump real questions, real policy questions, and just let him answer. And here it is, 10 months ago, Univision's Enrique Acevedo speaking to President Trump.
President Biden promised he would not add another foot of border wall during his administration, but now they're building, I believe, around 20 miles of barrier in Texas. Do you think that's a good decision?
Well, they hated to make it because it showed that I was right, but still 20 miles doesn't do much.
All right, so he's asking a real question about the border wall. It's a genuine policy question. Here's another one about America First.
Talked about America First policies. America First as a foreign policy. Do you think that still applies to the current global circumstances?
It's got to be America First to me. No contest. I mean, we have senators, Congress people that put China first. What's that all about? In many ways, Biden puts China first. And he got a lot of money from China, by the way.
So this guy, Enrique Acevedo, the whole tenor of the interview was that he spent the whole time just asking questions and letting Trump answer, which I believe there's an old-fashioned word for this. It's called an interview. He did an interview. He sought answers. He was able to receive them, and then he was able to share them with the public. Now, the left did not like this, it turns out. The Washington Post covered it at the time, and they broadly said that it was Latinos who were angry. That was a scam. It wasn't. It was lefties who were angry, but here's how they described it. Latino backlash grows over Donald Trump's friendly Univision interview. That's what they said at the time. The nation's largest Spanish-language media company, Univision, faced growing backlash Friday for its handling of a recent interview with former President Donald Trump, as major Latino advocacy groups delivered a letter of protest to the network's executives, and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus prepared to request a meeting with the network. Are you hearing this? So what that means is members of Congress, Democrat members of Congress, because the Congressional Hispanic Caucus is not an actual caucus of diverse, bipartisan, Hispanic Democrat congressman. It's literally just Democrats. It is, even the Washington Post calls it the all-Democrat Congressional Hispanic Caucus, drafted a letter to send to Univision asking the leader of that company to meet with members of Congress about the journalistic standards of the network. This is in reaction to a reporter allowing President Trump to speak. Democrat members of Congress wielding their office, their title, their taxpayer funding, their power to go after Univision, said, you better come in here right now. I want to know everything about your journalistic standards. Now, this is, of course, the opposite of the way the founders constructed this. The obligation in the First Amendment is that journalists hold the people in power accountable, that Univision ask these Democrats questions, ask anybody who would either wishes to or currently holds power, what they intend to do with it. Which, by the way, is exactly what this Enrique Acevedo did with President Trump, asking him, what do you intend to do? You're running for office again. How are you going to use this power? What's your presidency going to look like? Democrats were furious about that. How dare you convey to Latinos nationwide President Trump's words without disruption? They wanted a David Muir experience. They wanted a Lindsey Davis experience. They wanted an ABC News fake debate where they spend the whole time throwing haymakers at Trump when he's just trying to give you some information on what his campaign's about. They're upset about it. Acevedo, for his part, he would come along in the days after that, and he wrote his own op-ed for the Washington Post to respond. And the headline was, "My Trump interview had a purpose, giving Latinos a chance to hear him." Now, interestingly, he points out that there's a guy who you're familiar with, Jorge Ramos, whose daughter we talked about earlier in this program. I think Jorge's left Univision. Is he still at Univision? I think he left. Anyway, it's no matter. Jorge Ramos was his coworker, and he said, and he refers to him in the piece. He said, "While my friend and colleague Jorge Ramos champions confrontation as the only way to hold those in power accountable, the downside to that approach became clear in recent years as newsmakers across the political spectrum and beyond the United States refused to engage with Univision, driving the network to the brink of journalistic irrelevance," he says. "When an entire network is sidelined because of the perceived confrontational bias of a single journalist, its ability to fulfill the mission of serving and empowering Hispanics is severely compromised." He wrote at the time, he said, "Amid intense partisanship with clearly delineated camps, my interview with Trump wasn't crafted to convince Democrats or my colleagues in the press that Trump is an unsuitable choice. Instead, its purpose was to afford conservative Latinos the opportunity to hear directly from him without confrontation or hostility." And he went on. He made a really good case throughout this whole piece about why he was like, "Look, I just asked Trump questions. I let him answer. It turns out that's more productive than the garbage you people are telling me to do." Now, what does that bode for October? I wonder. I still sit here and wonder because, look, the left has mobilized the forces of darkness against this guy in the past just for an interview he did with Trump earlier this year. And the question becomes, will he be browbeat into submission? Will he, when he does this big Univision sit-down with President Trump coming up in October, will he be cowed? Will the left successfully smack him into a position where he's doing their bidding, or at least paying lip service to it? God willing, the answer is no. All I want is for him to ask real questions and get real answers out of both of these people. He's going to do a Trump interview, and then if Kamala sticks to it, she'll do this interview too. And when they do these interviews, they should be asked real questions. What do you really believe in? Kamala is terrible at giving answers to those questions. Kamala just spins around and doesn't really ever stick the landing. Meanwhile, President Trump has made a lot of a couple years back because of people like Jorge Ramos. Trump never walked away. He would always do it. He's like, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do the interview. Yeah, hostile territory. Oh, fine, I'll do it. That's fine. That's totally fine." He goes into these environments. So we'll see. But I thought that was interesting stuff. They're going to do this Univision interview. Who's doing it? It's a guy who's treated Trump fairly in the past. Let's see if he does it again. If you're an Arlington voter, I want to remind you, we're going to be out there Friday morning. Donuts, coffee, 8 o'clock at the Courthouse Plaza. Join us. It's going to be a party. Up next here on WMAL, the great one, Mark Levin.